hope that my audio is able to pick up. So I'm in this rant, you guys. What I wanted to talk about. Well, I just ate some tuna, and I'm trying to figure like. I hope to God that that was tuna, because if that was anything else, I'll probably be puking my brains out in like a minute, to be honest with you guys, because I can't handle certain shellfish, and automatically it's gonna come right back up. So it tasted like it was tuna. It looked like tuna when I opened it, so it should be tuna. But what I was gonna talk about basically was so my stomach just didn't feel exactly so comfortable just a couple seconds ago. So I guess I'll just cross my fingers and hope for the best. So like I was saying, I always talk about cryptids on this channel, just like a lot of other channels talk about them. And one type or types of cryptids that I don't hear about a lot are I don't even know if some people even know this is a thing, but insect cryptids, or as people like to call them, insectoid type of cryptids, right? So I'm going to be honest, you guys. Now the idea of a humanoid insect-like cryptid to me, I'll admit. Okay, so like my first thought is it sounds scary because when you think of insects, which isn't fair, it's not fair to think this way, this is just how we are, you automatically think, you think of something carnivorous that would probably, let's just be real, you think it would want to eat you or something like that. Or you think that if it was a group of them that were even small, your automatic thought is to think that they would want to eat you. Like almost any other thing that we see out there that we know about, your automatic thought is you think that you're going to be eaten, you're going to be mauled, and it's kind of a terrifying thought, like really terrifying, because you think you're probably going to be eaten alive. Like they're not going to wait until you're dead. You're thinking they're going to just like a zombie movie start eating you. You think you're literally going to just be eaten, and your last moments are going to be agonizing, and you're going to be like praying for those seconds that probably seem like an hour, that you're hoping you pass out and faint, or you're hoping that you would die. But that's not necessarily guaranteed. But I don't know if that's ever even a thing. I don't know much. I don't think any of us know a lot about cryptids that are insectoid. There's only very, very small, a small body of information of eyewitness accounts and things of that nature. Now, everyone knows about the Mothman, but who's really to say that the Mothman is moth-like, really? There have been some instances. I believe it was a famous, what do you call it? Like a famous, I can't remember this guy's name, but he's basically a famous musician, and he at one point him and a group of people encountered something that was like somewhat insect-like in its appearance, but that it is a thing, you know what I mean? With people who have had ET encounters, it's always been a thing. This, insect thing, it's always been a thing. But the idea of a small, and it can range, it can be something that is bigger than a man, it can be something that is much smaller than a man, more like a child size, to even smaller, even to something that looks like a bug size but larger. And to me, I'll just be honest with you guys, I'm not trying to judge these beings. I've never tried to judge something that I don't like know about, but my first gut instinct is that's, to me, that's more scary than almost anything, because I'm thinking of something like what a not golf ball, more of like a palm of my hand to bigger size creature that is an insect that could be smart or something. And I think, like, you know, if it's a bunch of them, what's going to happen? You know, are they are they going to jump on me and start literally biting me or something? I don't know. But honestly, I feel like that's kind of unlikely. Honestly, that's the real thing I get with most of these things is for you to be attacked by something like that is most likely unlikely. Most likely, it doesn't want to bother anyone. It doesn't want to be bothered. That's the whole thing. But now the thought of this, I'm just being honest, being just transparent. My first thought is a judgmental, very negative idea and thought, automatically. But also, I've trained myself for years to think past that, to analyze something and not just jump to conclusions exactly, even though I might have a knee-jerk reaction at first. That's all that is. And I'm talking about this, I think it's very interesting, right? It's a very interesting concept, in my opinion. And it's interesting because it's not too heard of, you know. And another thing that I thought was interesting was that people don't often talk about the locomotion of these type of beings because they're not cited very often. Now, I know there was someone who had an encounter, but I believe it was more of like an astral type of thing. I don't think it was more as physical as you'd imagine. I think this was more of like an outer body experience or something. And this woman seemed to describe these insects, I'll just call them insects because I feel like that's what they are. I mean, like, I feel like they're intelligent like a person, but they're an insect still. But, you know, these insects, which were very large actually, like, you know, taller than a normal man, would walk in a side-to-side manner. You know, with the way that I guess the way that their legs were positioned and locked into place. You know, it's like a spider-like sort of setup, almost, which I'm probably butchering it, because it's really probably much more different than that even, but they would move in almost like a crab-like way, like a crab walks, you know, a crab goes side to side, which makes perfect sense if your legs are made like that and positioned in that position. I would imagine there's not as much range of motion, especially being such like a hard type of being, you know, like literally hard, like exoskeleton, like just a hard shell type of thing. I can imagine the range of motion is not as much as like a person or what you'd normally expect. But that's one thing. But I also heard a story where a guy was talking about this small little thing, you know, like almost like childlike small, you know, really small being that he'd seen briefly, and was talking about, you know, this thing had like a large head, you know, but its limbs were very, very thin and small, and that when it ran away, it basically ran in a zigzag. Now, I'm going to talk about that because that is something actually that is really more or less a running theme with almost all cryptids, you know. And I think I understand why that is. I think I understand exactly why it is. I think what it has a lot to do is the fact that, because this even goes for a person, you know, if you're on all fours and you decide that you're going to try to dart somewhere out of whatever necessity that is, you know, you often don't find that you would have to pull your legs towards you. I know it sounds weird, but you're using your upper body to pull your legs towards you. In the minute that you bend in a position to where now the spine is, let's say, rounded, as people call it, the spine is rounded now. And it's very awkward for us to do this, but other animals it's very easy for them to do it because they do it all the time. When you take that next bound, you have to push off of your legs and then you have to pull them back again. You know what I mean? Like an accordion. Think like an accordion almost. You know what I mean? It makes sense when you really think of it. Now, the thing is, when you do that often, you are having to slightly tilt. With a person, you really have to do that because your arms are not long enough. None of our arms are that long, you know, to really do it so efficiently. You are having to turn, and this is from my just personal experience moving around, in certain areas that are like really, really low, really, really, bushy, let's just call them. They're very low, even very hilly terrain, that type of thing. You're turning slightly, planking almost, and you're turning slightly to compensate for that position, you know. So this is something people talk about with the dog man a lot, that zigzag thing, you know, because it's not necessarily just a straight line. Now they can move any way they really want, really, because of the way they're built. But the thing is, you are not moving in like a straight line per se. The thing is, you're trying to move in a straight line, but each time you move, you're switching. If that makes sense, you know what I mean. If anyone, you know what a zigzag is, you're zigzagging. You're not you're basically going in one direction because you're really trying to go straight in one direction. But a portion of your body, in the placement of your hands each time, your palms are slapping the ground, and you're moving in a zigzag. So it's not something I can I could actually show you now. I can't show you because obviously it's not the right setting. I don't have the right type of camera setup. You know what I mean? I'm not outside. There's not enough room. But that is a thing. That is 100% a thing. That has always been a thing. Now, the thing about, I'll go back to this insect that this person saw, with this bulbous head. It also makes perfect sense. Now, I talked about this thing having like the classic hawk leg, the back, you know, as an insect having the backwards leg or whatever. It's the same thing. It's the same thing with the dog man. It's the same thing with what do you call this thing? The rake at sometimes, depending on what variation that people are seeing. This has always been a thing. But aside from the locomotion, the thing about these insect-like beings, it's just not a common occurrence. That is the idea that I always got from this, because it's really not. You can't find a lot of information on this. If you do find the majority of information on what is not insect, because now we're talking about like arachnid actually, because you find a lot of these like giant, I'll say in quotation marks because I really don't know, you know, giant spider like things, like basically it's a spider. Remily looks like a spider, like a normal spider, but it's just way bigger than you'd ever imagine. You know, like something that is a spider, but basically is like the size of a dog or bigger or something like that. Which people have seen before. That's another thing too. See, when you get into this whole cryptozoology thing, it's very easy to understand that, yeah, there's a lot of things that we don't understand. There's so many things that are out there we don't really understand. But it all makes sense. See, I've always had this belief that, like, nothing is really too hard to really understand. It's just that you know, we live in a society in a world to where no one no one has like basically knowledge is mostly born out of like necessity. But the thing is, no person normally has the need for any of this stuff. Like, who's gonna need? Let me ask you this: why would you ever need to know, for instance, that like a giant spider exists? You know, like a spider the size of a duffel bag. A spider is bigger than your dog. Why would you ever need to know that exists? See, that's the question you have to retrain how you think. Like, you have to ask yourself, really, what reason would you have to know that that exists? You know, basically almost any person. What reasons would you have to know that that exists? Now, it does exist. You know, but the thing is, why would you have to? You don't have to know that it exists. You have to know that, like, Alpo dog food exists that you got to buy for your dog. You have to know that a coffee machine exists because you fucking drink coffee. Oops. I was trying not to curse in this video, but I'm sorry. I just would like, you know that coffee exists because you drink coffee. You know dog food exists because you have a dog and you have to feed your dog. You know toilet paper exists because obvious reasons. You know car insurance exists because you drive a car. It really boils down to that simple. The reason why some people know these things exist is because on a chance they happen to be out in a certain area, and just like we run across any other animal, you happen to run across one of these. You know what I mean? For whatever reason. Maybe even your car broke down or something. And now, you, to your surprise, were face to face with that. You know? Now, you also have to take into consideration that thing did not materialize out of thin air because you were there and your car broke down. No, it's always out there. It's had a birth like anyone else had a birth. It's a thing, and it was just doing whatever it was doing, and you were there at the right place at the right time, and you guys happen to see each other. So that's the way that always is. You know, that not always, I would say. That's the way the majority, I feel like, of sightings are. So it's not so nonchalant and magical, I think, as people. I mean, it's nonchalant. It's not as magical and like creepy and all this like extra stuff people keep always trying to put on everything. And I'm not saying that like there is not paranormal aspects to things, because there are. There's, like I said, there's paranormal aspects all around us, you know? Just like, a person that can see spirits is only strange because they can actually see them. But the spirits are always there, you know? You have to understand, like, that's how things work. Just like any other thing works. Like, you don't know what's on something until you put it under a microscope, you know what I mean? You put a pencil under a microscope, and then you can see all the stuff that's actually going on the surface of that pencil. So that's the way that this is. That's the way it's always been. There's no escaping this. But I just wanted to speak on it because I mean, I talk on certain cryptids more than others because they're like my favorites or whatever, or they're more popular or whatever. This is not so popular, but I've been wanting to do this rant, and I just figured like today would be the day that I do it. You know, and I'm gonna close soon. You know, this is not gonna go on long like it usually does. But I want to talk about someone who had encountered, who had an ET encounter, and this person has had more than one encounter. I'm not gonna mention their name. Even there's no reason to mention her name. And she's a real good person too. Just to say, this person is a very good person, but I'm not gonna mention their name. They're well known enough. They get enough attention. Now, this woman had come in contact with some insect-like beings, and she said that this is funny, but this is what she said, and I believe her honestly. She said they did not want to open their mouths because they were so used to when they try to communicate with people, when they open their mouth, it scares people. When they open their mouth, because of the way it looks, it automatically scares people, and people get the impression that they are going to be eaten. You know, that's that's the impression, which makes sense. You know, I am not going to lie that, and I have seen insects' mouths. I've never seen one of these things, but I know when I was a kid, I used to be fascinated by bugs. Okay, I know what some of these bugs' mouths look like under a microscope. I know what it looks like up close. I know what they look like. It is, let's just say, it's not very comforting. That's the only way to put it. It's very intimidating. It's intimidating. It's a little disgusting at times. I'm just being honest. That's what I see when I see some of these bugs open their mouths, and it's like you're just it's terrifying to watch. I've seen praying mantises eat things, eat the heads, eat the body parts off of other bugs, and I'm just watching how they're just like, it looks like something being gnawed by like scissors or something. They're just tearing, and I'm like, wow, okay. You know what I mean? Like, oh wow. So you imagine something that is much bigger than a person, and you're imagining like who knows what it could potentially do. But these things, the story was they were not trying to harm anyone. They were just trying to communicate or whatever. But the visual, like I said, you see the mouth. It's just automatically you think like even anything else, like a dog. You look at the mouth and you're thinking like, okay, you know. But this has always been a thing. This is not a very popular cryptid, but it's worth talking about. Now, I'm going to say a couple things before I close. This channel is not big. This channel is not known. So I'd appreciate if you like, comment, and sub. And one thing I would like was that would be if someone were to comment on this channel or on this video in particular. I have a question about have you had an encounter at all with anything that is not popular? You know, like, have you ever encountered something that is not very known about? You know, something that maybe, I don't know, maybe you even haven't told anyone, or just simply that it's just very like abnormal and unknown. And I think that's something I'm going to talk about in my the next video. I think I'm going to make a video about like these cryptids that people describe as almost looking like, not like literally looking like a teddy bear, but literally the same kind of short, stumpy, very, very small dimensions, very small build, very small, so short to the and small and low to the ground, which is the thing that people have seen. You know what I mean? And the interesting thing about that, it makes me think of a lot of what you hear of in, like, actually, believe it or not, like some African legends they have of these like small little hairy things that like resemble almost like a teddy bear. And usually these things, I'm going to be honest, usually there's nothing good to be said. I've never heard anything good said about these things. I really only heard like they're mischievous and very evil little creatures. But then again, I don't know. I don't know if that goes for all of them. It could just be, I don't really know. But that's something I'm going to talk about in the next video, whenever I do upload it. But you know, like I said before, this channel is very small. It's very unknown. I feel like on this channel, I think that like I said before, I think I like to talk about some cryptids that aren't really so popular. I think that I've talked about the rake too much because it's probably like my favorite cryptid. So with all that being said, please like, comment, sub, you know, hit the bell. And thanks to everyone who's already subbed. And until next time, have a good one.